Hello, hello. Welcome, welcome. All right, so today we are going to be talking about three things I wish I would have known when starting out as an author. And this was inspired by somebody who asked me a separate, similar question of what are some things that would help you to be able to finish writing your book. So I'll do a video about that too. But hope you're doing well. Happy Monday and welcome to 2025. I know last week for a lot of people was kind of like a ushering into the new year, but today you're in full swing. And hey, thanks for joining over on Instagram. So I'm going live on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook in my private Facebook group. If you're not already in there, then definitely check that out. I'll add the link into the description for this video. But today we're going to be talking about three things I wish I would have known starting out as an author. And if you're watching on Instagram, you might want to consider heading over to my YouTube to watch because I do have some visual situations going on here that might be helpful for you. And yeah, so let's get started. Let me know what you are working on for this year, so what your author goals are, and then also whether or not you've released a book already or you're in the process of publishing a book now. Let me know. All right, so I'm going to share lots of resources with you as well. So if you are not able to finish watching currently, then definitely save this so you can come back to it. If you're over on Instagram, you won't be able to save it. You'll have to watch it over my YouTube. So first of all, let me introduce myself. I'm Ashley. I'm the owner of Shep Publishing, and I help authors get from the page to the people with efficient and effective marketing strategies so they can publish profitably. Now, today we're talking about things I wish I would have known starting out when I first was starting out as an author. And so for context, I became an author in 2020. So my first book was released and I just got up to get my books and then I didn't get the first one. My first book was released in September 2020. And it's called New Mom Thoughts, Questions for Moms with Real Feelings. And at that time, I was a new mom. So I had a 9-month-old. And when the book came out, it was peak pandemic, stuck in the house. And so I said, oh, let me write a book. Yeah, I know. Bananas. But then 3 months later, I released my second book, which is the Daniel Fast 21-Day Food and Faith Journal. And this is actually one of my bestsellers. And so I believe when I looked recently, it was up to 4,000 copies sold in since December 2020. And then now, so I've released a matching cookbook since then. And then also I'm working on releasing my fourth book, which is Profitable Publishing with pre-orders, which will help authors to be able to publish profitably with pre-orders, meaning that you're able to create your own advance as an author with pre-orders and then also be able to cover your publishing costs. So I put the link for that in the description. Hey, Cynthia. Okay, so your goal is to release one book. Yes, so drop your goals for this year in the chat. And if you're like, that's a lot of books, we're gonna go to a point where I don't want you to compare yourself to other people because I have clients who I've worked with coaching clients who they've leapfrogged over me. I have one, she's released 21 books in the past year, and I'm just sitting at 4 that are not private pen name books. I have some other books, but so focus on you. That's gonna be one of the things I share. So let's get into the strategies that I wish I would have known when I was first starting out as an author. And if you are already an author, I do encourage you to still stick around and stay tuned because these might not be things that you are familiar with. They might not be things that you are aware of. Hey, Amber. Hey, thanks. If you can't stay, check out the replay over on YouTube. But thanks for joining. So I want you to be mindful that these are not just for new authors. These are just things that I wish I would have known when I first started out. So if you are already an author, you're seasoned, I'm still finding that authors that I work with or authors that I see online are still making these mistakes, and it's costing them profit, it's costing them book sales, things like that. So, all right, first, number one, I want you to be uniquely you. And so I'm gonna say that again. I want you to be uniquely you. And I have sticky notes because mommy brain is real and I don't want to forget anything. So what that looks like is really understanding first who you are on a cellular level, and think about times where you've had to introduce yourself, whether it's like with work or you've gone to conferences or something like that. And then people ask you, oh, what's a fun fact about yourself? And then you're like, what is a fun fact about myself? Who am I? What am I supposed to say to these people? How can I show up in this space? And I don't want to share too much. I don't want to share too little. I want to give a fact that's actually interesting. And so really understanding who you are and really understanding how unique you are and how you have been created is key. And that can feel weird. That can be hard, especially if you've gone through different life transitions. So I can't say recently I had a baby, but because he's 20 months old now at this point, but I'm gonna still claim that. And then I have a 5-year-old. So within the span of about 4 to 5 years, I had 2 children. There was a global pandemic, civil unrest, being the mom to 2 Black boys, and then also having become a stay-at-home mom during that time period due to job loss. You go through life's changes where you are unsure of who you are, you're unsure of who you want to be just personally, but then also adding being an author on top of that. So adding that adds another layer of who am I and what exactly is it that I want to do when I'm in this space? What do I want to be known for? And things like that. And so you want to think about those and decide who it is that you want to be and how you want to show up, because all of that's going to permeate in everything that you do. So whether it is your book promotion, if you're trying to get people to buy your book, it's going to show up there. Whether it is whether it is you writing about your book, especially if your book is something that helps people get a transformation, if it's something that helps people to be able to help themselves do something to produce profit or to produce a result within themselves, you are going to have to show up and market that book. You're going to have to show up and write the book and talk about it. And so you have to decide who it is that you want to be and how you want to show up. And then I also want to encourage you to not be concerned about what you see other people doing and whether or not it is something you want to do versus something that, like, don't compare yourself to other people. Let me say it like that. Be very mindful, especially in the author space, to compare yourself to other people, because there's a few reasons for that. One, the things that other people are doing might not fit your author goals. They might not be something that you are actually aligned to want to do or even have a desire to do. And you might just be doing it because you see other people doing it. And that's not a good strategy, because there's certain things that are behind the scenes that you might not be aware of that they're doing that, first of all, they could be shady because there's a lot of scammers out there. So they could be super shady boots. Second, because the scammers never worry about scamming. Second, it could be something where maybe their focus is to use their book to be able to build their coaching business, their speaking business, things like that. So that's an option. Or maybe it's something where they're like, I just want to sell as many books as possible so I can say I've sold as many books as possible. You have no idea what people's motivations are unless you talk to them and ask them. And even then, it depends on the person. But you want to be mindful that follow your own path, stay in your own lane. And then also, when other people are zigging, you should zag, because not that there is, to me, I don't believe there's such a thing as overcrowding in the marketplace, but I do think that there are certain things you can do to stand out, to be able to put yourself outside of the crowd or to put yourself ahead of the crowd, things like that. So with that, don't follow the path that you see other people creating, because that path is for them. It's not necessarily the path for you. And be very in touch with who it is that you are. So I didn't give my disclaimer at the beginning, but I'm a believer and a Christ believer in the sense of like brown Jesus Christ believer, treat other people fairly regardless of anything. And I say that because there's different facets, and those are your beliefs. But I say that because part of who you are and part of your identity, for me, is tied up in Christ and who he has made me to be. And so when I'm looking at ways that I want to really focus on who I need to be for myself and the spaces that I need to show up in, then I use resources that are aligned with that, or I use resources that I can kind of chew the meat and spit out the bones. And I also am mindful that everybody's advice is not good advice. And so even with me, you need to run the advice that I give you through a filter to see if this is something that aligns with your beliefs, and if it's something that aligns with your faith, and if it's something that aligns with your personal convictions, because all of those things are going to be what drive you to be able to support the people that are reading your book. Hey, thanks for tuning in over on Instagram. And then also with that, you want to really get comfortable with it, who you are. Be comfortable with the person you are, your quirks, your weird aspects, and the fact, like, I talk really fast. And I know my mom, she's not watching, but I know for her, that's something that she has really tried to help me slow down with. And I do slow down, but at the same time, I'm like, my brain just goes like this. And the people that I attract, they also go like this, and they're able to keep up with the pace. So I'm not saying if you don't understand what I'm saying that you're not one of my people, but I have found that your people will find you. And so we'll come back to that in a second. But this point is to talk about being uniquely you. And then one way in which I'm doing that is being comfortable being in spaces where I'm the only person saying something. And that could look like online spaces. And sorry if my hands are ashy, y'all. I just realized I need to find some lotion on my desk. My children move my stuff around. It is cold out here. Let me get some lotion. So, but be comfortable being your like this. Like, I didn't plan to be Ashley on screen, obviously. My name is Ashley, and all my life I've prided myself on not being Ashley. And so, anyway, be comfortable being in spaces. Be comfortable with the ways in which you show up. Be comfortable with your unique perspective and abilities in certain things, because that's why people come to you. People come to me because they understand that I'm going to tell them the thing that they should do, that's honorable, that is faith-based, that is laced with love. I might gather you a little bit, but it's something where people understand that there's a reason for it. I'm not just saying things to be mean. I'm not saying things because I just want people's money. I'm saying it because I genuinely care about helping people. And that comes from me being a believer, coming from my teaching background, things like that. And so all of that to say, being comfortable being in spaces where you are saying things that are different than other people, tap into that as your unique selling power, as your unique selling position. And so, for example, one way I'm doing that is my book that's coming out that I'm releasing. It's called Profitable Publishing with Pre-Orders. And the biggest premise of it is that I don't believe you should host your pre-order on Amazon KDP. And I have some content surrounding that, so I'll link that whenever I finalize this YouTube video. But the entirety of the online space as authors, self-published and traditional authors, they typically tell you need to have your pre-order on Amazon. That's just a standard. And I don't believe that for a variety of reasons. One of them mainly is because it doesn't prioritize profit. Point blank, period. And I'll talk about why prioritizing profit is important. But with that, that's something where I'm okay with people kind of going against that. People saying, oh, well, you don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like, well, I do know what I'm talking about because I have the results. I have the receipts for my own books, for my clients' books. And for self-published authors, it just is not the most profitable path, which leads to it being a concern with other aspects. So be uniquely you and be okay showing up in those spaces and be comfortable standing in your convictions. So some ways to do that, if you're like, well, I don't know who I am and I'm trying to figure out that, then some resources to help you. One of them is called Uncloned Life. And so this is by one of my mentors, Audrey Richmond, and it helps you to really think outside the box and to be comfortable with being uniquely you. And then this one is from one of my friends. His name is Alex Nemo Hance, and he is an OG when it comes to content creation. He's been doing motivational items for authors, I want to say for over 10 years, like showing up in online space. And so this is a book of affirmations because sometimes you have to remember who you are and what you stand for. And so reminding yourself of that. And then for this, then also the Bible. So I use that to remember how God has created me and how I've been uniquely gifted in doing certain things. And so I have a placard, I guess, in my office that says I am God's masterpiece, and that's from Ephesians. Sorry, brain just stopped working. Ephesians 2:10, and it's saying that everybody is God's masterpiece. And so in this, the world was created with all of these people, and God thought, oh, I need one of you to be able to add to the mix. All right, so how would it apply to you to autism spaces? You're autistic. So being autistic doesn't necessarily, unless your books are about autism, so let me know. But if your books are not necessarily about autism, which I do have some clients that is the case for them. Julie, she's able to use my strategy. She's signed up for a couple of my classes and programs as well. She's based in the UK. But the topic of your book would adjust how you show up in those spaces. And so let me know for that. So are your books about autism, or are you just sharing that you're autistic? And then I'll answer that. All right, so point 1 is to be uniquely you and show up in those spaces as your whole self. All right, point 2, things I wish I would have known when I was just starting out as an author, is to show up for myself. And what does that look like? So what does exactly mean? Now, when that comes to being an author, being a business owner, being online, you want to make sure that you are showing up as your full self. So once you know yourself, you know who you want to be, you know how you want to show up, you actually need to consistently do the work and show up. Now, consistency doesn't mean that every day you're doing a video. It doesn't mean every day you're putting 50 million TikToks online, unless that's just what works for your audience. But it means that you want to put out the content in the way in which you want it to be received. So putting out the content that your readers like or that your audience likes, and then also being able to do it on a consistent basis that works for you, a cadence that works for you. So for me, I have 2 kids. I can't always film content. I can't always do certain things. However, I lean heavily on email marketing. And so that's a way that I'm able to show up for my audience to be able to be consistent, because I can write emails ahead of time. I can schedule them out. And then I know that people are going to see them when they see them. And then it also has a higher rate of being seen than social media. Then also thinking about collaborations and partnerships. That's something that I do with my cookbooks and with my Daniel Fast book on my food business side, Chef Ashley Shep. is that I form partnerships and collaborations with people. So, for example, right now, I'm a guest expert in two different Facebook groups that focus on the topic of two of my books. So that way, during the year, when people are focusing on those topics, I'm able to be a resource, a trusted resource within the group to be able to market my books to them, to market my other products and services that are all tied to the book. As well, forming partnerships or forming collaborations, and maybe this isn't really a partnership or collaboration, but putting myself in spaces where I know my audience is going to be. So, for example, for this book, it's faith-based. So I created a Bible plan on the YouVersion Bible app for people to be able to use and then direct them to the book. And so it's a 5-day plan. It's really 6 days, but it's a 5-day plan. Well, okay, it's a 6-day plan. We'll say that just for simplicity. And so essentially, I took the first 6 days with some tweaking of the devotional and made it into a Bible plan format. I, of course, had to edit it, tweak it, things like that. And so now people who complete the plan, they're directed to additional resources that I have. They're able to add themselves to my email list, and then I'm able to sell things to them like the books or other products and services. And so those are things that I can set up one time and not have to continually be there to show up in that space, but people are still able to get emails from me. They're still able to see things that I've created before. I recently just shared a cooking class that I did through a church that bought some of the cookbook, and so I'm able to share those things with my broader audience with on the food side, because you didn't see it over here because I didn't talk to you about it, but on this side with Shep Publishing, then I'll be able to show you the why and the behind the scenes of it. So finding places where you can show up where it doesn't have to be you giving all of this showing up in places where you can still reach your audience, reach your readers without having to deplete yourself is key. And it's going to be super important, especially in 2025 and beyond, because with the rise of AI and with the rise of endless content that's being able to be created, then you are competing against a machine, and you don't need to compete against a machine. You need to compete in your own unique way in terms of being your unique self. So let me know if that makes sense. All right. So also being confident in the abilities of you being able to do the thing. I speak with authors, especially over on Threads and online, who are just not confident that their books can be successful. They're not confident that they can sell books. They're not confident that they can get people to buy their books. They're not confident that people even want their books. And I want you to flip that and really understand that you can be, if the book was given to you and it was something that is purposeful and intentional, and if there's an audience for it, there are people that want your book, you just haven't found them yet. And also don't think, okay, nobody's watching. So you have to be comfortable with being in the period of going from looking silly in building your audience, building things. Like even right now, I don't have a ton of people that are on live with me right now, but I'm still going because I know people will watch the replay. I know people will still see this, and I can push it out in different ways. But you have to be comfortable in the period between looking silly to looking successful. So I'm gonna say that again. You have to get comfortable between the period of looking silly to looking successful. You have to stop caring about what people who are not your ideal reader care about, because if they're not your ideal reader, they're not going to be your ideal customer. They're not going to buy from you anyway, so you don't have to worry about what they think. You want to focus on people who are your people. And then also there's a quote that I kind of keep close to my heart and think about, and it's that there are people who are confidently doing it wrong and they have no plans of changing whatsoever. There are scammers out there scamming and they have no plans to unscam. They have plans to consistently scam, and they're not worried about being scammers. Okay? If you are not an imposter, if you're not a scammer, then you don't need to be worried about scamming, because those folks who are scamming and who are imposters are not worried about it. Okay? All right, so let me see. Okay, your question, you write young adult fiction. It's not necessarily about autism, but you feel they're geared towards an autistic audience with how you write. Okay, so with autism, that's something so let me make it more general for people who aren't necessarily the same type of author as you are. When it comes to selling your books and reaching your readers, you want to be mindful of that. Okay, yes, this might be the focus, but there's still people who are auxiliary who would still appreciate something like that. So there's a movie that's coming out. There's one that came out earlier called Wonder, and it's based on a book called Wonder. And then now the sequel, I think is what it is coming out. And I can't remember the name of the sequel, but it's coming out this year. And so in the story, there's a little boy who has autism. Now, And I'm pretty sure, yes, I'm pretty sure he has autism. And so the first story is kind of talking about how he relates to the other people in his class and things like that. And then the second story is kind of continue that journey, and it talks more about the parental side of raising a child that has autism. And so even though the story is about people, or is about a child that has autism, that doesn't mean that people who only have autism are only going to be the audience. There are going to be people who are, for example, when I taught, Wonder was a book that one of the classes read in fourth grade to teach empathy and compassion to the other students in case they were ever around a student that had autism, to know how to support them, how to help them, to understand things that are going on like that. So though that is the focus of your book and you are in that category, don't feel like that's the only group of people who would be interested in that topic, if that makes sense. Let me know if it is. And if not, then I can elaborate further or shoot you a DM. So going back to showing up for yourself. So the level of confidence that you have is so important because it comes off on camera, it comes off in your content, it comes off in everything that you do. And so you really want to be mindful that though you might not have that confidence yet, you want to do things that boost your confidence. So you want to put yourself out there. Like, for example, now you want to show up on the live video. You want to take the course. You want to read the book. You want to be consistent, because with that consistency, you're going to see the results, and you're going to get people that are telling you certain things to be able to, sorry, I just forgot about something, to be able to say, okay, you are the person that I want to work with. You're the person who I want to grab a copy of their book. You are someone who is going to make a difference in my life by reading your book. And so I'm going to give you an example of something that happened last week. And I just realized it was on my phone, but I'm using my phone for IG. And so I'm just going to scroll on my second monitor and pull it. And so what I say by showing up, there was a time last year where I thought, okay, I've been consistent. I'm seeing some results, but it's not as quick as I'd like to see them. And so this lady named Brandy, she said I could use her name, and she said I could share these things. And so this is with permission. She messaged me at the end of last year, and she told me that and I'm going to read some of what she said because she said it was okay. And this is one thing, whenever you are doing something and you are doing it consistently, even though you feel like nobody's watching, people are watching. Lurkers are there, and I'm not saying that in a negative way, but lurkers are there and they are looking. And you might be thinking, oh, well, this post only got this number of likes, or this post only got X number of da da da. But likes are not always indicative of who's purchasing, and are not always indicative of who is paying attention. And there's a quote that I love from Jamal Miller. He's a entrepreneur who went from food stamps to 7 figures, and he might be beyond that now. But one thing he said, I heard him at a conference, is that likes don't pay the bills, because they don't. And you have to be mindful that people might not even like your stuff, but they might still purchase from you. So, all right. Sorry, we had a good long convo. Okay. But one thing she was sharing with me is that she reached out to me before, and then she came back because she realized that she couldn't do it on her own. It meaning finishing her book, getting her book in front of the audience that she wanted to get in front of, things like that. And so she was feeling like she was stuck. So she shot me a DM and was just asking, okay, what kind of path should I go on? Things like that. But before we did all that, she said that, okay, so she said, I must admit, I've been watching you for a while. I love that you're faith-based, which is what I need. And I'm finishing my first book, and I would like to know what your services are. And so I explained to her what they are. And then she said I was the first one that challenged her to go ahead and introduce her book before it was done, and also to understand her target audience so that she can find her right readers. And she was like, okay, so that told me I need to stick right here and make sure I'm tapped in here. And that has been 5 years since she's been working on her book. And so she got to the point where she's like, I'm tired of waiting. I'm tired of just saying, okay, I'm going to write the book, going to finish it, going to get it out. And she knew, okay, I see something in this person, and I want to tap into that. I want to make it so that I'm able to get where I need to go by working with other people. So when I'm talking about showing up for yourself, that means showing up by you doing the work, meaning you're taking those courses, you are reading the books, you're hiring the help where you can, or you're binging on YouTube if you can't afford to hire the help, because you can't say that you want these results and then not do the work to get those results, because it's not something where it's this magic bullet of, okay, well, once I get this level, then I can just stop working. Or once I get to this level, I don't have to do anything. I don't have to do any training, things like that. I still invest in myself. Typically each year I spend anywhere between 4 and 5 figures to invest in myself. And it pays off because I'm able to see those results in the things that I'm able to do. Recently, I got certified as an Uncloned Marketing Pro. And so what that means is that I'm able to, so it's a marketing certification through Audrey Richmond and Uncloned Marketing. And so I'm able to use the proprietary frameworks and structures of the Uncloned Media brand. And so that looks like hosting VIP days through launch styles, doing pre and post launch assessments for folks, auditing their social media, auditing their websites to be able to help them to have a more successful launch. And so for me, I had already done launches and I was already confident in doing launches. However, going through that program was something that helped me to be able to up level my skills because in the online space, Audrey Richmond is one of the goats in online marketing. And I know some of you who follow me follow her, and I kind of put you on, or you might have already known about her before, but it's something where I knew that if I wanted to say, okay, I want to be the best at book marketing, I want to be able to support my clients to be able to be their best at their book marketing and or have them hire me to do it for them, then I need to step up and make sure I'm looking out in spaces where I can be the best in that. And so all of that works to help you to be consistent and helps you to be believed. It helps you to be accepted and say, okay, this person is the obvious choice. This person is the one that I want to work with. This is somebody who knows their stuff and knows what they're doing. And so when you are going through that period of the looking silly to looking successful, there's going to be a time period where you feel like nobody hears me, nobody sees what I'm talking about, no one's listening, and that can kind of tank your confidence a little. But I find that I end up getting little God nods of like, okay, this person's watching. They say, girl, keep going. Or this person is inspired by you and they tag you on a post and say, oh my gosh, this helped me so much. And so understand that what you're doing is helpful and it's more than just a book, regardless of if you're writing romance, regardless of if you're a nonfiction author. And I think that's kind of something that people get a little hesitant about is they think, oh, only the people who write nonfiction, only the business books, only those folks who have a direct tie into things you can sell beyond the product are ones in which the book makes an impact. But if you're a children's book author, like I said, I'm a mom of two. I'm a former literacy teacher. I taught literacy for over 10 years and then also was a literacy coach working with teachers to support them. Kids need books. These kids need to read, okay? So even if you're a children's book author, there is a purpose for you. You are helping people create a lifelong love of reading, and you're helping parents find ways to be able to support their kids. So regardless of your book's topic, understand that there's a purpose for it, and in order for that purpose to get out and where it needs to go, you have to show up consistently, and you have to show up in a way that is your full self. Woo, okay. So was preaching on that one. Let me keep it moving. Let me make sure I got everything on my sticky notes. Oh, one other thing. When you are trying to show up, and let me know in the chats if this is resonating with you. And thank you, Cynthia. Okay, I missed your goal earlier. So she is saying she wants to release her one book this year, and that's perfect, ma'am. And I know we talked about it, so I'm gonna be on you, Cynthia, about getting that book out. But another way to, or not another way, but when you're showing up for yourself, you also want to really focus on the process as opposed to the outcome. And this is a quote that I heard recently. Not that quote, but basically the fact of, I can't remember the exact quote. Let me just tell you the premise. Basically, the fact that you are not responsible for the results. You're responsible for the work. So the work that you put in, the work that you get done, you're responsible for what gets put in, the input. You're not responsible for the outcome. Whatever happens, happens. You can't control the outcome. You can't control whether or not people buy. You can't control whether or not people listen to the podcast you got featured on. You can control what you do. So you can control the things you put in, the time and energy you put into learning your craft, the time and energy you put into learning book marketing, because book marketing is a learnable skill. And I need to go put that on Threads and on some other places because I find a lot of authors who are like, oh, well, this is so hard and I can't do this. And I get it's hard, but it's still learnable. So just like you learned how to publish as a self-published author, you can learn how to market. It's something where you can learn how to do it. I don't have a marketing background beyond the things I've just told you of being a marketing, getting certified in marketing. Like I don't have an MBA. It's not something that you're not able to do. So be mindful that this is a learnable skill and you can do it. So with that, moving on to our next one. All right. So next, this one is another one I might end up being a little preachy on, but one thing I wish I would have known when I was first starting out as an author is to prioritize profit. Okay, perfect. You said this is resonating with you over on Instagram. Wonderful. Prioritizing profit. Now, I understand you have been told as an author that there's no money in being an author. You have to be a starving artist. You are, and I don't know who told y'all this, but this is a sentiment that authors don't make money. Authors are not able to sell books beyond the 250 mark, which totally surpassable. Did that within my first 2 months of publishing. And I'm not saying that to brag. I'm saying it to show you that it's possible and that my authors are able to do it as well. But prioritizing profit makes everything else possible. And you can do it in a way that doesn't feel like, if y'all watched DuckTales before, that was a huge cartoon in my childhood. You don't have to be Scrooge McDuck to prioritize profit. You can prioritize profit and also still prioritize people. It doesn't have to be one or the other, because prioritizing profit makes it more possible for you to prioritize people. That's a lot of P words. So with that, when you're prioritizing profit, it means that you are able to help people. You're able to hire people. You are able to use technology. You're able to pay for this software. Hey, Building with Jesus, thanks for tuning in. We're talking about prioritizing profit. You're able to pay for software. Nowadays, everything is a subscription-based model. It just is what it is. Unless you're on AppSumo, then okay, they got some good deals. You can get some one-time payments for things. But everything is a subscription-based model for the most part. So when you are prioritizing profit, you can pay for things as an author and as a business owner. You are able to hire a VA or a PA to help you, because there's a lot that has to get done on the business side of being an author that it can feel overwhelming if you are not prioritizing profit to be able to make sure that you have money to pay for those things. You're able to use email marketing, and not that you have to pay for email marketing, but you're able to use the more advanced forms of email marketing that help you to increase your profits and to drive more profit. And then you're also able to support others. So for example, I've had 2 VAs over the course of my time in business. And so one, she ended up going a different direction. And so she does something different, but she was my project management VA. And it was to the point where she worked with me for about 2 to 3 years. And she like went on maternity leave, came back, and was still working with me. And so for her, she's overseas. For her, it was something where she was able to live the life that she wanted to live because people like me had hired her. And I wasn't her only client, but I was someone who was able to help her to be able to spend time with her newborn, because she was able to take maternity leave, because I don't think her country offered it. She's in the Philippines. And then she was also able to spend time with her baby on a schedule that worked for her, because she would get assignments, or not assignments, she would get things for me that she needed to do. And then she was able to do them at her own pace. And so having a newborn and having she had an older child as well, she was able to live the life that she wanted to live because she was able to create that freedom. And that's the thing that profit does. Profit creates, in your book business, profit creates time freedom. It creates freedom of being able to not have to worry about, okay, well, how am I going to pay for this daycare bill? How am I going to pay for XYZ? And as authors, typically it's not something that is shared, or it's not something that's really focused on is prioritizing profit. Typically, what do people focus on? Let's see in the chat. What do people who are authors or people who are in the author space typically focus on that you found? I'm going to take some water while y'all add that in. And let me scroll through. And maybe you haven't even noticed it. Okay, let's see. Yes, books. Yes, people who are authors typically, or people who are in publishing, they focus on books sold. So that's something where if you say, oh, I'm an author, I have a book like this, people ask you, okay, well, how many books have you sold? Or if you are looking at author spaces, people post like, oh, I sold this many books. And I've done it too. I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm not saying that. But I am saying that when you are thinking about books sold, and this is something that I was writing in a chapter of my Profitable Publishing with Pre-Orders book that I'm finishing up, that the fact of, let's think about it. Let's do some math. So if I think about books sold, typically the average self-published author is making anywhere between $2 on the medium low end, maybe upwards of $10 if you are selling on sites like Amazon, KDP, or Ingram Spark. If you're on Ingram Spark, you're probably making less than that. If you're selling on your site, you have a little bit more flexibility and you're probably making more money than that. So let's say maybe you're making $15 for your book. And then when we think about what it takes to become an author, so the steps it takes to become a published author, maybe you're spending upwards of $500,000, multiple thousands of dollars to be able to become an author. Now, if we put those two numbers together and think about it, if we divide that, let's say we divide $2,000 by, let's say, we'll take the high end, the $15. So if I take those two numbers and think about how many books I have to sell in order to recoup my costs by just selling books, you're going to have to sell 133 books, which is not improbable. However, the majority of authors are not selling more than 250 in their lifetime. So that means it's going to take you most of your lifetime as an author to make that money back if you were solely focusing on books sold. And that's just not something that makes sense. And not saying you have to spend $2,000 on publishing. You can do it in a different way. It can be more affordable. So even if we looked at $1,000, let's say you spend $1,000 from your formatting, your editor, things like that. And then let's say you're selling on your site, you sell $15. You sell the books for $15. So then you're still having to sell about 66 books to that. But if you're prioritizing profit, you're going to be able to do that at a much higher rate. And if you have a longer book, your editing is going to be more than that $1,000. So I just use that as a low end. But when you're prioritizing profit, you're able to get to that rate faster. You're able to guarantee that. And especially if you're prioritizing profit with pre-orders, then you are going to be able to sell that thing, or not sell that thing. You're going to be able to get your money back for your books. And then that way, as you're advertising and marketing, you're not marketing from a scarcity mindset. You're not marketing in a way that's like, oh, I got to make sure I recover my publishing costs, or I got to make sure I pay for this marketing, because you're able to actually focus on what it is that you are doing. And that's getting people to read your book because you love it and you want them to love it. You're not focusing just on having to make this money back to make book sales, because when you sell from that space, you're selling from desperation, and you're not going to make as many sales because people notice that and they understand that. So let me know in the comments if that makes sense for you about prioritizing profit, and also prioritizing profit over page reads, because this is a huge thing as well online with Kindle Unlimited. When you look at Kindle Unlimited, you're making on average about 0.004 cents per page. And that's only if somebody reads it the first time. So if you're an author, you're on KDP, and you put your book in Kindle Unlimited, and I'm not saying this doesn't work. This is a strategy that can work for some folks. So like the romance authors, they typically do really well in Kindle Unlimited, depending on the strategy. But if your book is not a bazillion words and your book is not a ton of pages, and you don't have a following on that to be able to drive sales into Kindle Unlimited to to read it and get those page reads, it's going to take a ton of people to be able to read your book in order to make your money back, if that's your sole marketing standpoint. And so what I want to say to you is that one tip that I should have known, or that I wish I would have known earlier, is to prioritize profit over page reads and prioritize profit over books sold. Because when you do that, you're able to hire help. You're able to create freedom for folks, create time freedom for other folks. You're able to really maximize your opportunities and to understand that you don't have to trade your dollars for hours. Because if you're selling books and things related to your books, then you have another form of income that is so necessary, especially nowadays with all the things that's going on outside. Having an extra income, having an extra $100, $200 a month, that can make a huge difference. And I'm going to do another video or audio later this week about how setting up those assets, so writing your book earlier, writing the courses, things like that, how it can make it so that you're using those residuals. So for example, this month so far, it's the 13th, so we're about a little under halfway through the month. And let me take a step back. So from December 23rd to today, I've made about $1,400 in my food business from book sales and related things such as speaking, things like that. And so because I had already created these assets ahead of time, now I can reap the benefits of being able to get paid from that on a continual basis. And so I'll talk about how I did that later this week. But saying all that to say, that came from prioritizing profit. It didn't come from book sales, because all that money is not for book sales. A lot of it is, but not all of it. All right. Now, I also want to share with you a quote that, oh goodness, where did it go? Is this the right quote? Nope. Sorry. I want to share a quote with you that my brother shared with me. And if you are someone who is oh no, that was the right one. Okay. If you're someone who is working 9 to 5, or you're someone who is wanting to make more profit in your book business, but you're not quite there yet, I want you to kind of think about this and also reframe your mind. If you're someone who you might have friends or family who are saying things to you that are like, well, why would you want to write this? Or it's just negative Nancy's, negative naysayers. I want you to think about this quote. And so he sent it to me yesterday. We talked business stuff and things like that. He's an email copywriter. And so that's why I'm so passionate about emails. But all right, so I'm going to read it to you if you're on IG. Okay, so if you spend the first quarter of your life figuring out how to make $1,000 in a 40-hour week, they call you normal and applaud you for your hard work. If you buck the norm and focus on how to make $1,000 in 40 minutes, you're called lazy. So first frame of reference, like a typical 9 to 5 job, $1,000 a week in the 40-hour week, that's a norm in our societies. So the second part is saying, okay, well, if you can do that in 40 minutes, so such as like selling class, selling something else that's an asset, then people think you're lazy because, oh, I mean, you only did 40 minutes of work. How are you making this much money from that? All right, let's keep going. If you dare focus on how to create $1,000 recurring over and over using 0 minutes of your time, they call you a scammer. I'm gonna read that part again. If you dare focus on how to create $1,000 recurring over and over using 0 minutes of your time, they call you a scammer. So let's think about it like this. You are an author. You have the ability to make assets that you can sell over and over and over again. Over and over and over again. Like, you had the minutes up front, like, okay, yes, you made the thing. But beyond that, you're able to still make money off of that thing indefinitely. And then when you pass, your family, the generations that come after you, they're able to do that too. And that goes for more than just books. So let's say you have a course that's tied to the book. Let's say you have an experience that's tied to the book. You can do those things over and over. All right. Every innovator from the Wright brothers to Stephen Jobs has faced this. We can nuke a tater in minutes today, so you can like put a potato in the microwave in a few minutes. We can push a few buttons on a screen and have a gourmet meal show up on our doorstep. We can watch almost any movie ever made without fighting traffic on a trip to Blockbuster. No shade at all for those doing newfangled things, but heaven and bleep that out. Forbid if we don't earn our money the old-fashioned way. So I want you to focus on, I meant to scratch it out, but I want you to focus on prioritizing profit and understanding that you don't have to trade your dollars for hours. You don't have to only make money from things that you are doing right then. You don't have to only make money from tangible things. Like, you don't have to make money just from your book. You can create things that are surrounding your book. You can create things that are associated with your book. And all of those things can still increase book sales, or it can just be something you include as a part of the process. And that's all possible. And it helps you to be able to sell more books. If that is ultimately your goal, is to sell those books, then there's certain things you can do that surround that in order to increase your reach. So for example, my book that I'm working on, Profitable Publishing Pre-orders, I also created a group coaching program with that. I did that first before finishing the book. And so because I used that, and the coaching program is called Pre-Order Profits. So that started in October, ran it through December. And because I had people who were actually going through the coaching program with me to, like, I'm teaching them, I'm able to use anecdotes from the coaching program in the book. So instead of just saying, okay, well, hypothetically, and not that I hadn't already done it before, because I've done it. I've done pre-orders for clients, and then also I've hosted my own pre-orders. But this was the first time I did it in a group coaching container. And so there's certain things where when people are there in the same space together, there's certain elements that happen where they are vibing off of each other, or they are resonating with each other. And so there's certain insights that anytime you're running something live, you're able to get those, glean those, and also use those in future things. And so don't be limited and think that your book is the only thing that you can use to help people, because there are so many things beyond your book. Even if your book is not a nonfiction book, there's so many things you can do to be able to spread yourself, multiply yourself, to create additional assets that are surrounding your book, to be able to increase your profit. Okay. All right. Let me know if that resonated with you. Go ahead and put profit in the chat. Hey, thanks for joining. Okay, so over on Instagram, D. Roberts said, oh, I understand. Never paid attention to page reads. Yes, so I know your book just came out, so that's a little bit of a newer concept for you. But okay, my last one. Thank you all for rocking with me. I gotta find my third sticky. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, fourth sticky. So the last one, I said I was gonna be three. I'm gonna do three. I'm giving you a bonus. The last one is relevant for all authors, whether you are new, whether you are seasoned, it doesn't matter. Whether you're not an author yet, please pay attention to this, okay? And this is a bonus because I already knew this before writing my books. This wasn't something that was new to me. However, it's something that apparently a lot of authors are not understanding and that they don't know. And so I felt it was necessary to include it in this. So with that, this is a bonus thing that you should know before starting out, or thing that you should know and remember throughout your author process, is that you really need to know your audience. Like, know them like the back of your hand. Know them and understand them on a spiritual level, maybe not spiritual, but understand them and know your audience. And I find that this is something where authors say, okay, I want to sell more books. I want to get my book out there, which Lord knows where there is. And I'll do another video about that another day. But that's another thing that I'm just like, y'all, we have to stop saying get my book out there. Can we just agree to stop saying that this year? Because where is there, and who all gonna be there? Where is there? Where is that? Anyway, understanding your audience, understanding them on a deep cellular level, is the key to everything when it comes to selling your books. So let me explain what I mean by that. So understanding where they hang out, what kind of spaces are they showing up on, what kind of, and that's in person or virtual. What kind of rooms are they hanging out in? What kind of conversations are they having? Or are they having? And so we hear now that, okay, TikTok may be banned. I haven't ever been a very very huge TikTok user. I combined huge and user. Anyway, I haven't been a very big TikTok user. However, in the video I'm going to share later this week, I will share how I'm using it before they leave, because I've made about $200 on TikTok in the past 2 to 3 weeks from TikTok Shop from my product selling my books. Anyway, when you are understanding your audience, that means it affects everything else that you do. So it affects what social media platforms you're focusing on. And for me, I hadn't really been focusing on TikTok because my audience, though they're there, it wasn't something that I had really tapped into. I just was at capacity with it. But it helps you to understand how to respond to people. It helps you to understand their responses to questions that you might have. And if you think about some different audiences, so like Beehive, Beyonce's audience, or you think about Disney lovers. So whether you are a grown-up that loves Disney or a kid that loves Disney, those grown-ups that love Disney are very serious. We went to Disney World last year and in July, and so I joined a couple groups, and there's like a whole strategy to get the most out of the park and all that jazz. So understanding, and the thing is, each of these examples I'm giving, they understand their audience. So Beyonce understands the Beehive. Disney understands, I don't know if they have a name, the Disney folks that like Disney. And you want to understand your readers and your audience in the same way. You want to understand, okay, what are some things that would really help them out in this season? Or what are some things that they would really like to see from me? And if you're thinking, okay, well, I don't know how to find this out, I'm going to give you some strategies, give you some tips. And so reading reviews. So reading your own reviews on your own books, if you have books that are out, reading your reviews, reading the bad ones and accepting and processing them and sitting with them. That is something that has helped me, because actually with my second book, the devotional, I kept getting reviews that people said it's not a cookbook. And in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, this is definitely not a cookbook because it says journal, but then it has all this food. So I'm like, okay, maybe they got confused by that. But I'm like, okay, there's nowhere in here that it said it was a cookbook at any point in time. Nowhere on the description. But I understood, okay, people are looking for a cookbook and they're giving me these bad reviews because it's not a cookbook. Now, I could have just been upset about it. I could have just been like, man, people don't understand. Or I could have just done something about it, which is what I did. I did a cookbook. Like, so tapping into what it is that your audience wants and what your audience needs is key, because it can create additional product offerings. It could be a training that you include. It could be something that supports them and helps them to be able to be more endeared to you, to be more of a raving fan, which is somebody who reads your book, recommends your book, and then also reviews your book, leaves you a review without you even asking. And so if you're thinking, okay, well, I don't have a ton of reviews, I do have strategies on that, so I'll add those links in the description of this video over on YouTube. And you can read other people's reviews. So when you do this, of course, make sure it's people who are aligned with your book's topic. So find best-selling authors in the category of your book, and then read those reviews. Read the negative ones, and not in a way that you're trying to be catty of like, oh, you got this negative review, but read them in the sense that you are looking to see what gaps they have that your book could fill in. Also, looking at the positive ones and seeing commonalities. And now, y'all, Amazon has done us a solid by actually summarizing the reviews. So on some products on Amazon, you might have noticed users commonly say blah, blah, blah. And they use AI to do it, but they're scanning the reviews, they're compiling the information from it, and then they are putting in like, okay, these are the things that people liked. These are the things that people didn't like. So, of course, I still want you to actually read them and go through them and do the research, but it makes it so much easier to understand, okay, where are the gaps in this market? Where are people looking for things? What are the books talking about that are in this category? And how can I make sure that I am better supporting my readers or my potential readers? Then looking at comments. Now, I like to read comments over on Instagram. I like to read comments pretty much on everything. And sometimes you'll find more information and more content in the comments than in the original post. And especially on Instagram and even on YouTube too, people are pretty honest, and Facebook. People are pretty honest in the comments. And so looking at your competitors and looking at people who are in the same category with you. Because I don't believe that authors are really competitors, because at the end of the day, people buy more than one book. Like most people who read, they're not buying one book a year or one book in their lifetime. They're buying multiple books. So look at people who are similar in the regard of the genre that you write, and then see what the comments are saying. See what kind of things that they liked about that person's book. See what they liked, what they didn't like about that. And then also, but don't copy, of course. Don't copy. But find the way in which you can show up in your unique space with that. All right. Okay. D. Roberts over on Instagram said, okay, got it. Find the missing element and create the element. Yes, exactly right. So find what's missing, make it uniquely yours, and then create it. And then also you can look at resources like Google Trends, Answer the Public, and then also in my new book, Profitable Publishing with Pre-Orders, I share additional strategies to be able to really understand your reader so that you can sell your book via pre-order. And so the link for that is in the description. Or if you're thinking, okay, I'm not doing a pre-order, my book's already out, then I do also have a class called Creating Raving Fans, and the link's in the description for that too. And so it's on demand. You can watch it at your own pace, and there are resources that are included, so that way you can really find who your reader is and to be able to know how to support them and the things that they're looking to do. Now, one last point about this. Your reader might not be on social media. And that's okay. There's this takeaway that people have of, I have to be on TikTok, I have to be on Facebook, I have to be on Instagram, I have to be on all these platforms. You don't have to be on all these platforms. Go ahead and get your handle on all these platforms. Definitely do that, because scammers will get it if you don't. Definitely do that. But do not feel like you have to be on all these platforms, because your reader's probably not on all these platforms, or they're probably consuming content in different ways on these different platforms. Let me get some more. Okay, thanks. Thank you for letting me pause. They are on platforms, but they're not spending as much time on them. So they might be on LinkedIn, they might be on Instagram, they might be on Facebook, but there's probably 2 to 3 platforms that they're spending the larger majority of their time. And that's where you want to lean in and you want to spend more of your time. Okay. And typically, if your reader is also in the same audience you are, meaning like, for example, my first book was for first time moms. I was a first time mom. My second and third books are on the Daniel fast. I was doing the Daniel fast from my chef perspective, from my business, Chef Ashley Chef. My fourth book, Profitable Publishing with Pre-Orders, I did pre-orders for each of my four books and have supported authors to do them as well, and ended up covering our publishing costs in the pre-order period. So being in the audience means that you also have an advantage of knowing, okay, these are the people who like doing these things or interested in these things. You typically are going to run in some of the same circles. So not always, but typically. All right. Now, I am finished. I'm going to leave some time open for Q&A, but so you go ahead and add your questions now. And I meant to say this earlier, and I did answer a few before, but when you're thinking, so go ahead and add your questions. I'm going to just do a wrap up. But when you're thinking about how you want to show up and how you want to be, what you want to be known for in the space for your book, then really just understand that knowing your reader, showing up for yourself, being uniquely you, and then prioritizing profit. Those are our 4 points for today. All of those are going to affect the ways in which that you make book sales and the ways in which people see you and they find you and they begin to trust you. So show up for yourself, be consistent, be uniquely you, prioritize profit because it makes everything else possible. And then know your audience, know who it is that you're talking to, and understand them on a deep level. Okay. And of course, if you need support with any of these, then feel free to use the links in the description or reach out to me via chat on the platform that you're watching on. Or if you're on YouTube, then comment and I'll be happy to point you in the right direction. I have resources for all of these items, and I'll link these in the show notes or in the description as well. All right, let's see. Hey, Christina. Thank you. Thank you for watching. I appreciate that. Okay, great. She's like, great lesson. Let me add you to the broadcast. Let me get fancy. Let's see. Will it show up? Using software. There we go. Okay, perfect. Boom. So I'm using software and getting more comfortable with it as well. All right. So I don't see any questions. And so I'm going to head out. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is longer than I thought it was going to be, but it was some good content. Oh, wait. Christina gave another one. Okay, let me see. And Christina's one of my coaching clients. Let's see. I'll add her comment. Okay, she said, for y'all that don't know, she's an amazing author and coach. Thank you. You're so sweet. And Christina is an amazing client. She's the one that I was talking about earlier that has leapfrogged over me. I mentioned you at the beginning saying that you have over 20 books. And I just got my 4 for my name and then some private pen name books. But so, all right. Thank you all for tuning in. And if you're watching replay, definitely let me know and have a great rest of the day.